All right, so one thing you might want to do before you get too far into this now is get a layer down on the background. So I thought it'd be fun to try out this paint I have, which is my fluorescent pink from Stuart Semple. So I bought some pink and some black. Whoa, holy moly, that's coming out. All right, that's all right. We'll deal with that. I bought some pink and some black and some chrome. I'm pretty excited about them, so I think I'm going to use my pink today for the background here. So it's a good idea to paint your background. Oh, coverage on that is not as much as I'd want. Ooh, okay. Gotta figure out what to do about that. Hold on. Whoops. Kind of had to just open this. Sprung a little leak right there. Opening it up. And some squooch out. I've got a little plastic piece. It's the top of like a greens bin that I'm using. So as you can see the grid through here. So my coverage isn't very good. It's my issue. I'm actually gonna take my pink here and I'm gonna mix it with a little bit of white because that'll give me some better coverage. And then I might go over with another layer of pink after I get that grid covered. So let's do that. All right. So I've got my paints on this side over here. I've got a set. They all go together. I've got another set over here, smaller tubes. When you buy a set of paints, they're usually like specifically chosen to match and to provide you with a full range of mixing abilities. Most paint companies will put out color charts like this. So you can see this one is Modern Theory. And this shows all the paints that are in like that line of paint. Okay. So you want paints that'll like go together. So if you have a set, that's an easy way to make sure that they're all like complementary paints that go together. If you just buy random paints, you might not get a good mixing set. So that's kind of a smart way to do it. Anyway, let's add a little bit of white. So I'm going to put some white down here. This will give me better coverage than just my pink, and then I might do another layer of all pink on top after I get the grid covered up. That's a lot of paint. That's all right. So I like to generally kind of paint things from the back to the front. So starting off with the background and getting that covered. You're going to do like a ton of work on the portrait itself, and you don't want to have to work the background up to the edge of this immaculate work that you've maybe done. So if you do the background, which is usually simpler first, you kind of paint the foreground over it as needed. And for your background, you guys can get creative with it. If you want, you can kind of do whatever you want to do. It doesn't necessarily have to match your image. All right, kind of smooth that out just a little bit. I do want to be kind of brave and work that background right up to the edge. And it's okay if I go over a little bit. I can repaint the hair, and it won't be a big deal. I haven't really finished it yet, so I have to paint on there anyway. Alright, so now that my grid's covered up, I can do another layer in pink after that dries. I'm going to try to get that brush as cleaned off as I can. Alright, so now I want to mix a skin tone. So I'm going to mix a skin tone down here. I've got a brown that's pretty good, but I'm not going to use that because I think probably a lot of you don't necessarily have like a pre-made skin tone that'll work, so you probably have to mix it. If you want to mix a lighter skin tone, you're going to be using a yellow and a red and a white mostly. You might put a little bit of blue in, but only if it needs it. Usually you can just get away with the yellow and the red and the white. So the red's the strongest color of those three, so mix it really sparingly. I have to do kind of a darker skin tone. So I'm going to start with probably a yellow. Go with this Hansa yellow. So on the other side, yeah. That. Then I need a red. So brown is a little bit hard to mix with primaries sometimes, but we'll do our best. What's up, Tater Tot? You here to bug me again? You weirdo. Woof. Woof. How you doing, buddy? That's more blue than I wanted, but that's okay. These are new, so they kind of explode. Tater Tot, you need out? Come on out. Get. All right. So let's move this for a minute here. I'm going to start with the yellow. The darker the colors get, kind of the stronger they're going to be. So I want to start with kind of my weaker color as the base. So I'll start with my yellow as the base. Because adding a little bit of red, you can see will quickly overwhelm it. And even more so with the blue. So it's getting a pretty nice tone actually. We're getting close. Just a little bit of blue. That might be too much. We'll see. Yep, that's way too much. That went quick. So the thing is, you have to like look at what you've got and you say, what color do I have too much of in here? So there's too much of a green tone right now. I don't know how well you can see it on the camera. It's not necessarily picking up the color entirely. So I want to use the opposite of the green. So I want to use the red. This is kind of the nice thing about a clear palette. I can see through it, and I can see how the layer is going to look. Alright, so I think a little more red in there. This is also why the palette knife is nice, because it, see, it kind of mixes. Alright. You can also scrape with it. I think that's close. I want a little more yellow in there. The yellow is kind of weaker. Maybe I want a lot of yellow in there. I was using a glass palette, which is pretty awesome for oil paints, but I was trying to scrape the acrylics off of it, and it was very challenging. And I think I can get them all off eventually, but I just thought, I'm just going to use something disposable. So I'm adding a little retarder. You could also add medium if you don't have retarder. If you don't have medium, then you can add water, but that's not going to work as well. It's going to make it really wet and thin. It's not necessarily what we want. All right, I'm going to mix that in. So I want to have a large volume of transparent sort of skin base to start with. And the idea again today is going to be to lay down thin layers so that I can see the underpainting as I develop what's on top. All right, plop that in there. Bring this back up. Okay, so let's see what we got. I'm gonna just put a little bit of water on there and see where we're at. That's pretty good. All right, so I'm gonna want to have like my skin base. I might want to have a little bit of extra red to add to areas to redden them up, because there are going to be some skin areas that are a little redder than others. I want to have some white, and I want to have a little bit of red and blue to make sort of a shadow tone as I move forward. All right, so now I'm going to start laying this in. Let's just start with the forehead, I think. So it's the same idea. It's really nice to have the retarder, because I put in a lot of work mixing my skin tone right. And I want it to stay wet long enough to get a pass over the entire painting. All right, so I lay down one layer of skin base. Put this over here. Now I'm going to add my white. Oh boy, that's more than I needed. That's all right. And I'll mix it in. So basically the same sort of idea as with the gray layer, except now instead of a gray I'm using a skin base tone. All right, let's try to get like a pass over the whole thing. Just a little bit of adjustment as we go. I'm going to go to this side next, since I am right-handed. I don't want to be crossing wet paint if I can avoid it. So I'll start working on the left-hand side and then work over to my right. So if I've established a strong black and white layer, you can see that a lot of that shines through. And I don't have to do a ton of adjusting to my highlights and shadows. But if I see anywhere that needs to be picked up a little bit, I go in and add some. There's too much paint on there, I can feel it. We'll worry about those eyes later because I need some pink for them. So I think we're good. All right. Oops. That's all right. Bring that back out if I need to. So using this technique, you're going to have a lot of gray and white and black under your paint. And that's going to decrease your saturation. But the more layers of color you build up, the more saturation you'll get back. So if you want it to get really saturated, you can just slowly build that up. A little bit. What does it do? Maybe a little bit right here. Oops. You gotta be careful not to dip the wrong brush. Get in here. Knock it off. Huh. In. Alright, so now we need some more highlights. I'm gonna clean off my brown brush. Wet this a little bit. I'm going to add a little bit of retarder to my white there. Let's move that over a little bit. There we go. I'm going to mainly focus on the face today probably and kind of worry about the clothes later. You can get a lot of detail and accuracy on the clothing if you want, but you don't have to really. As long as you get the face area right, you can get away with a lot everywhere else. Mix a little bit of that white. I'm going to add a little skin tone to some of this as well. Get a light skin tone. There we go. So now I've got kind of a high value, a mid value, or a middle light, and a middle. Lighten her up quite a bit. So I feel like maybe a little warmer, but that's all right. Gosh, that's gotten stiff. That's too much water. Problem with it getting too wet is when it gets too wet, it starts to pull off the paint that you go over, which is not great. There we are. That's a little better. All right, so if we want to add some shadow, let's talk about how to do that. If I need to add shadow areas to the face, I might not need to if I've got enough built up with the underpainting, but if I need to, what I'm going to do is, let's get this off. Mix a little bit of blue and some red. Actually, just let's mix it here. And if that's a little too purple, you can add a little skin tone into that. Maybe I should add more red to that and not be lazy as well. I've already filled this palette up pretty quickly. Alright, so now I can add a little bit of shadow tone if I need to. Like that. Who is that? I don't need a lot of it, but that's how you make it like a shadow tone there. There we are. Build these up. I feel like my next layer needs to be a little bit warmer. It's also a little hard to see what I'm doing because I've got a lot of shine coming off of my paint that I'm not seeing with my eyes. The camera's definitely getting it though. Kind of a bummer. A little bit of yellow in here. There we go. Just a little bit of yellow. This highlight here. Reflected light. All right. All right. Since I got a pink out right now, I might add a little bit of that for my eyes here, and my. I probably won't use that pink for the lips, but I might be able to use it for the eyes there. Or maybe I'll hit the background again. Let's see what we've got time for. So I kind of want to make one pass at a time. So I kind of establish that, and then I'm going to let that layer dry, and then I'll go over it again as many times as I need to get it to where I want it to be. And the steps will always be the same. If I need to unify things, if I need to decontrast things, I'll use a layer of skin tone. But if I need to make more contrast, I'll add in my whites and shadow tones. So what should we do next? Let's add a little bit of that pink. If it's still wet enough. Oh, it's not great, but it's still moving. Okay. A little retarder in there would be good. Picture bigger. She looks weird without her eyelashes and eyebrows, but I'll add them in soon. It'd probably be better to save those till towards the end. Losing some of that paint. So some of my paint is peeling off under there. So it might be better to wait and let your layers dry. I thought that was pretty dry, but it does not seem like it necessarily was. I'm going to add a little white. Establish some of those highlights. All right, let's try to figure out a good lip color. Put a little tartar in there. So we've got kind of a pink. It's not like that fluorescent we've got there, but that looks pretty good. Ooh, that is too fluorescent still. Let's add some more Maybe a little warmer too. Do we have any more yellow that's wet? It's okay if your colors are a little bit off. One thing, it doesn't necessarily matter if they're a little bit off, but also another thing is you can adjust them as you build the layers up. So especially on your first pass, they don't necessarily need to be 100% spot on. The limitations of your skills and your tools will make the painting uniquely yours. All right. Let's see. It's a little much. It's all right. Come back in. All right. I'm going to make these highlights a little stronger than they appear. That's just for my next layer. I should be able to go over them and that'll mute them a little bit. So preparation for that will make them a little stronger. Damn it. Stop texting me. All right. It's probably a pretty decent pass for now. I need to get warmer. It's too green in here. But we'll worry about that next time. Let's, well, what do I want to do? What do I want to do to wrap up? I want to kind of go into the close. That's what I would like. But I've got kind of a mess here, so that's going to be a problem. Where are we at? Oh boy, I've already gone past halftime. Okay, so if you guys want to go async now, you are welcome to do that.